Chapter 22 Opening the Furnace to Refine the Elixir, Shocking the Beauties of All Ages. What? That lecture is actually refining pills. Hearing the report from the maid in green, Zhang Chen and Xia Yurong, two beauties, one big and one small, exclaimed in unison, looking extremely incredible. Knowing the pill formula is simple. As long as there is a master to teach, you can just memorize it by rote. But refining pills by yourself is different. If you want to become an alchemist, you must first start with knowing the medicine, understand the pharmacology of each medicinal material, and then control the fire. Alchemy requires extremely precise control of the fire. It can be said that the fundamental difference between a master and an ordinary alchemist lies in the level of fire control. Refining low-level pills is these two things. As for high-level ones, it also involves the power of the soul and the laws of heaven and earth. Even if the two women were born in the Earth Medicine Pavilion, they only know the general idea. It is impossible for an alchemist above the 7th rank to really understand the inside story. Just knowing medicine and controlling fire is enough to turn a teenager into an uncle. So even for an alchemy power like the Earth Medicine Pavilion, one must be at least 30 years old to become a 9th grade alchemist. There have indeed been a few evildoers in history, but they also became alchemists in their 20s. That lecturer is more talented than all the evildoers in the history of the Earth Medicine Pavilion. How is it possible? Yurong, this kid probably wants to attract your attention. Zhang Chen immediately understood. Master Yurong snorted. How could she be interested in a lecture like Yan? He is daydreaming, the little girl said very proudly. After a while, the maid in green came again to report. The furnace exploded. What is a furnace explosion? When refining the alchemy, the furnace exploded, which means that the alchemy failed. It was indeed so. The two beauties looked at each other. How could such a lecturer be a genius in alchemy? What a joke. Let him pay for the damaged items at the price, and ignore the others. Xia Yurong said indifferently. Yes. The maid in green nodded, her face full of disdain. How noble is her lady, and how can a country boy like you marry her? It's blasphemy to even think about it. The furnace exploded. Yan shook his head. It was not because he hadn't made pills for a long time, but because the quality of the furnace was too poor, and his cultivation was too low. Otherwise, he could save it even on the verge of explosion. Try again, he didn't care. He would never fail again next time. Sure enough, half an hour later, a furnace of pale golden gathering spirit pills came out. Gathering spirit pills can directly improve cultivation. This is the most widely used pill. From 9th grade warriors to 1st grade saints, it can be taken. However, gathering spirit pills can also be divided into 9 grades, and warriors of each realm take gathering spirit pills of the corresponding grade. It is fine for a high-grade warrior to take a low-grade soul-gathering pill, but the effect is low or even no effect. However, if a low-grade warrior takes a high-grade soul-gathering pill, the only possibility is that the body will explode and die. Unable to digest the huge energy in time, the body will naturally explode. The materials on hand can only refine the 9th grade soul-gathering pill. Otherwise, with the strength of my Tao origin body, it is fine to take the 8th grade soul-gathering pill. My cultivation level will be improved significantly. Yan shook his head and sighed. A good cook cannot cook without rice. He put away the finished pill and started to refine the next furnace. Miss Zhang, miss, that person, the maid in green came again, hesitating to speak. The little beauty was lying on the table reading a book, and her proud peaks were directly against the table, showing how broad her mind was. The key is that she is only 17 years old, and there is still a lot of room for growth in the future. She may not lose to the big beauty next to her. Hearing this, she gently put down the book, turned her head and glanced at the maid, revealing a displeased look. Didn't I say that we don't need to pay attention to that pretentious lecture anymore? But Miss the maid in green thought for a while and said it out loud. That guy's second furnace of gathering spirit pills has been refined. What? The big and small beauties exclaimed at the same time. How is it possible? From the materials he took, it should be the 9th grade gathering spirit pills. Zhang Chen pondered. Although it is the lowest grade pill, the success of refining it means that he must be at least a 9th grade alchemist. An alchemist who is less than 20 years old. The big and small beauties looked at each other. All of them could not hide their shock. Oh my god, how is this possible? They were very disdainful just now, believing that Yan was just pretending to be mysterious. But they were immediately slapped in the face. It hurts. Nangong Aoyun, the genius of the Nangong family, also refined his first furnace of pills when he was 22 years old. Xia Yurong said slowly. How evil is Nangong Aoyun? Now, he is only 27 years old, but he is already a 7th grade alchemist. In the history of the Earth Medicine Pavilion, only 4 people can match him, and 3 can surpass him. But compared with that lecturer, he is still not as good. Yurong, that kid is so bad. How good is his master? Zhang Chen said excitedly. If we can ask his master to help us participate in the 4-clan competition, we will definitely win. No mistakes, one sentence, one content. 1 content, 1 6, 1 book, 1 bar. Hem. Sha Yurong nodded like a chicken pecking at rice, and every time he nodded, his chin would touch his chest, creating an alluring wave. Investigate this person immediately. I want to get all his information, the beautiful woman ordered. Half an hour later, Miss Zhang, miss, that guy has refined another furnace. The green-clothed maid came to report again. Also, this is the information of that person. She put a page of paper on the table. Another furnace. The little beauty was extremely shocked. Alchemy is a very mentally exhausting thing, because you need to concentrate all your attention during the entire process of refining. If you make a mistake, the furnace will explode and all the previous efforts will be wasted. Therefore, no alchemist will refine pills continuously. Generally, they will rest for at least an hour after refining a furnace. And high-quality alchemists will even rest for 1 or 2 months after refining a furnace, because this also involves the consumption of soul power, which is not so easy to recover. But that lecturer not only refined pills continuously, but also succeeded. This alchemy talent is too amazing. Zhang Chen picked up the information and read it. After she quickly scanned it, her face was full of surprise. Is this really the information of that person? Reply to Miss Zhang, yes. The maid in green said respectfully. Zhang Chen was speechless immediately. Sha Yurong took the paper and read it, and was also stunned. Such an alchemy genius was actually the son-in-law of the Chu family in Sakang, and was kicked out like garbage. When he was in the Yi family, he was mediocre. After marrying into the Chu family, he was the same. He was driven back to the Yi family with a divorce letter. 5 days ago, he was beaten up in the street by the Mao family's playboys and was seriously injured. However, the Yi family did not treat him and sent him to the deserted mountains to die. Unexpectedly, he returned like a king 4 days ago. He not only killed the Mao family father and son, but also drove the head of the Yi family out of power. The day before yesterday and yesterday, he defeated the troops of the Wang family in Sakang. Today, the head of the Wang family came to apologize in person. Sha Yurong looked at the information and felt extremely salivating. How could there be such an outrageous thing? 5 days ago, he was beaten half to death like a dead dog, and he came back alive and well a day later. People say that things change over time, but this guy turned the tables in 1 day. If anyone from the Wang family was here, they would definitely be shocked beyond words, because they had strictly blocked the news, especially since they came in person to apologize to Yan, and kept the entire process confidential. However, it was still discovered by the Dioj in such a short time. Chapter 23 Shocked to Numbness. That's right, Zhang Qin slapped her hands. The key is that most of the day after he was thrown into the barren mountain, Sha Yurong was not stupid either, and immediately reacted anti. Are you saying he got an adventure in this half day? But as soon as she said that, she shook her head first. It's only half a day. Even the exaggerated adventure is still the same. You can't improve his strength so much, Zhang Qin said. If a 5th grade or even 4th grade alchemist takes action, can an ordinary person instantly rush to the 6th or even 7th floor of the acquired sky? Sha Yurong was shocked and quickly nodded again. That's indeed possible. Zhang Qin continued to analyze. I guess that the great alchemist had already accepted this son as a disciple, but he never let him practice martial arts until he was beaten up by others. He used supreme means to give him strength in 1 day. It's sword. And I got my own debt. Master Yurong Yuren was fascinated by. I really want to meet this master. Don't worry, since you know that there is such an expert standing behind you, just stare at this person and follow the clues, Zhang Qin said confidently. Another half an hour later. Then, that man has made another furnace. The maid in green came to report for the 4th time. Is it done again? What a terrifying talent. Zhang Qin nodded. I refined 3 furnaces of spirit gathering pills in 1 breath. This is really amazing talent, but this should be the limit. Sha Yurong nodded and agreed. However, half an hour later, the maid in green came over, hesitating and wanted to speak but stopped. Say, Zhang Qin ordered. That man has refined the 5th furnace of spiritual gathering pills. The maid in green said then, and shrank her neck. Just now, Zhang Qin asserted that Yan's limit was 3 furnaces of spirit gathering pills. But when she turned her head, she was slapped in the face, and she would definitely be vented. However, Zhang Qin did not scold her, but her eyes were lit. Yurong, that kid's master is indeed a master, but this kid's talent is even more amazing. The beauty said excitedly. Even if your grandfather asked him to refine 9th grade elixirs, at most it would be to refine them continuously. 5 furnaces. Sha Yurong nodded in agreement. But who is her grandfather? The dignified 5th grade alchemist is almost at the peak of the Daxia alchemy. The talent of Deng Tuzi's alchemy is so terrifying. I must recruit this kid into our medicine pavilion. Zhang Qin was still very excited. Now this kid may be at the level of a 9th grade alchemist, but as long as he is given 10 or 20 years, he will definitely become a big shot. Zia's alchemist king. Although Xia Yurong didn't want to agree, he couldn't say anything to refute. He could only blame God for being blind. However, the 4 furnaces of continuous elixirs should be the limit, Zhang Qin asserted. Xia Yurong nodded and agreed again. However, half an hour later, the maid in green came over for the 6th time, just looking at the two masters with a shocked expression. Without having to say anything, Zhang Qin said herself, "Will that kid refine the 5th furnace?" "Yes, this Zhang." Seeing her asking on his own initiative, the maid in green answered honestly, although he was slapped in the face again. Zhang Qin was not angry at all and said to Xia Yurong, "This genius must hurry up. Cook the raw rice into cooked rice. Are you really my dear aunt? Now, I don't dare to make any judgments anymore. This kid may create miracles." Zhang Qin brought the topic back. "If this guy makes a few more furnaces, I can't think about it." Xia Yurong knew that the aunt was joking, but she rolled her eyes again. Another half hour later, the maid in green appeared for the 7th time. And another half hour, the maid in green appeared for the 8th time. When she appeared for the 10th time, she said directly, "That man has finished all the medicinal materials." Xia Yurong and Zhang Qin were already shocked by the reports of the pills again and again. They were relieved until they heard that the materials were used up. Although they still did not try Yi Yan's limit, at least they didn't have to be shocked anymore. "You can tolerate it. You have to take down this genius." Zhang Qin grabbed her niece's shoulders and said in the most serious tone, "No mistakes, 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. Are you really my dear aunt?" Xia Yurong looked at the beauty blankly. Her mouth was open in a round shape, looking shocked at all. She and this aunt were used to joking since childhood, but it was precisely because of this that she could clearly tell which sentence was joking and which sentence was serious. It's serious now, and it's never been serious before. If you want to talk about who she trusts the most in this world, then the aunt in front of her will definitely be in the top 5. So what if that guy is the first alchemy genius in history? Should she take advantage of her own happiness? She hated this bastard even more, extremely annoying. The little girl got angry and bulged her cheeks and didn't go to see her aunt at all. Zhang Qin glanced at her and couldn't help but smile and said, "What, are you angry, HMPH?" The little girl did not answer, but just pouted her little mouth higher. Zhang Qin smiled and then said, "Yurong, your teacher family has not had a strong population in the past century. In your generation of sisters, there are only 5 people. Changtong, Jiming, and Beishan have no elixirs. The talent in Taoism. You and Xiongron are just deducing the talent of the alchemy recipe, but the alchemy technique is not good. Your grandpa is still holding on now. But what about your grandpa in 100 years? Those 3 families have been eyeing you covetously. As soon as your grandfather leaves, they will definitely take away all the assets belonging to the Shai family. The easiest way is to marry you sisters and make it legitimate. By then, not only will you have to marry someone you don't like, but that person will even be the enemy of your Shai family." The little beauty's angry expression disappeared when she heard half of it, and she was full of sorrow when she heard the end. Chapter 20 For selling or not. Yi Yan put away the 9 furnaces with a total of 90 for soul gathering pills and walked out of the alchemy room with great satisfaction. He came to the lobby and said to a shop assistant, "I broke one of your alchemy furnaces. How much silver do you want to compensate?" "It's just an alchemy furnace. It's nothing to mention." Before the shop assistant opened his mouth, he heard a delicate and crisp voice. It was the beautiful woman who was so charming and looked like she had a melon hidden in her chest. There was also the little beauty beside her. Seeing Yi Yan's eyes looking at her, she couldn't help but snorted and turned her pretty face away. A natural treasure. Yi Yan sensed the spiritual power fluctuations coming from the girl's chest again. It was so obvious that the level of this treasure must be not low. How can I get it? He stared at the girl's chest, thinking. Xia Yurong cursed in her heart. This man is too shameless. He stared at her chest again as soon as he came up. This sight seemed to be real, making her blush. Zhang Qin was also stunned. It was okay for you to be so lustful the first time, but now again? How despicable are you? You don't know how to restrain yourself in such a public place. Are you going to sell that thing? Yi Yan couldn't help but pointed at the girl's chest. Although he had no money, he had countless pill recipes in his mind. Any one of them could be a priceless treasure, and the value would be even higher for merchants like Dioge who make a living by refining and selling pills. I'll take the pill recipe in exchange for the natural treasure on your chest, right? Xia Yurong was stunned at first, then furious, and left with a wave of her sleeves. This is simply a scumbag. He actually pointed at her chest and asked if she would sell it, which was obscene and bold beyond words. Zhang Qin was also shocked by Yi Yan's shamelessness. Although she liked to tell some blushing and heart-beating jokes to her niece, they were all in private. How could she say them in front of everyone? "Mr. Yi, Yurong is not feeling well. Let's talk about it another day. But thinking of Yi Yan's terrible talent in alchemy, she still suppressed her dissatisfaction and smiled to smooth things over. Yi Yan just felt puzzled. If you don't want to sell it, then don't sell it. Why are you so petty to me? But it was none of his business, so he didn't bother to care. He said to Zhang Chen, "Goodbye. If there are any incomplete pill recipes that need to be completed, you might as well come to the Yu family to find me." He walked out of the door, and before he took a few steps, he took out a spirit gathering pill and threw it into his mouth, chewed it a few times and swallowed it. After a while, a weak spiritual power emanated, and after circulating in the body, it was absorbed into the danchan and turned into a drizzle of spiritual liquid. One soul gathering pill can probably improve his cultivation by 1%. Barely, okay. Yi Yan took out another soul gathering pill and threw it into his mouth, chewed it a few times like a broad bean, and then swallowed it. If the beautiful women Xia Yurong and Xia Yurong saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked. Who would eat soul gathering pills like this? When you go to buy soul gathering pills, the pharmacy will definitely tell you that you can only take one pill a day. Taking more than one pill will not only have no effect, but will hurt your body. First, medicine is 3-point poison, and the soul gathering pill is the same, but it is very weak and can be excreted from the body in one day. So taking one pill a day is common sense that everyone knows. Second, the soul gathering pill is actually a ball of spiritual power that can be absorbed by the body. So if you take multiple pills and the body cannot absorb and refine them, then this power will accumulate in the body, which will only burst the meridians and blood vessels. Very dangerous. But what is Yi Yan's constitution? The origin of the great Tao. Not to mention that the power of the 9th level of the acquired realm is like tickling. Even the innate realm has to bombard him continuously to cause damage to him. And the origin of the great Tao is naturally transparent. What kind of toxins can remain in his body? The side effects for others are completely non-existent for him. The second gathering spirit pill dissolved, nourishing his danchan and filling up the danhai a little bit. He smiled and threw another gathering spirit pill into his mouth, as if it was a candy bean. When he returned to the Yi family, there were only 40 of the more than 90 gathering spirit pills left. The 4th level of the acquired realm is perfect. Break, Yi Yan said softly, and the invisible shackles in his body were broken immediately, and the space in the danchan skyrocketed. The 5th level of the acquired realm. Who in the world can cross the border in a single step? Only the great emperor. He went out in the morning and refined 10 furnaces of pills in one breath, which took almost 5 hours. So it was already night. Huzi had woken up long ago and was sitting at the door waiting for him. Master. When he saw Yi Yan, Huzi immediately ran over, and then he seemed to have thought of something and couldn't help but lower his head, whispering, "Master, I'm sorry. Huzi embarrassed you." "What chain?" "Oh, didn't you beat Zhang Taiking yesterday?" Yi Yan said calmly. "Do you know why you lost?" "I don't know." Huzi shook his head. "Still stupid. You only know how to use brute force." Yi Yan said, "If the opponent is much weaker than you, such as Zhang Yutai, you can defeat him with one force. But if the opponent is only slightly weaker than you, or even the same as you can only get beaten." Huzi nodded, indicating that he accepted it humbly. "I will teach you a set of boxing, and you will use this set of boxing to beat people in the future." Yi Yan continued. Huzi showed an embarrassment and said hesitantly, "But Huzi is stupid. It's okay. You practice during the day and at night. Don't do anything else. Just practice this set of boxing for me." Yi Yan said, with the shame of defeat. Huzi must be very motivated to learn boxing. Okay. Huzi nodded vigorously. He couldn't embarrass the young master again. Only then did Yi Yan smile. "Let's go home." After entering the mansion, Yi Yan had dinner with Huzi and his parents first, and then began to teach Huzi to practice boxing. This set of boxing is called Burst Tiger Fist, which sounds very ordinary, but it was created by Yi Yan imitating the attack of the mythical beast, White Tiger, as a mythical beast. This set of boxing is perfect for Huzi. There are only 9 styles of Burst Tiger Fist. Yi Yan will teach him the first style first, and then teach him the second style after he learns it. Take your time, don't rush. After teaching a few times, he went to sleep, and then he could hear Huzi's huffing and puffing all night long. He actually practiced boxing all night. Huzi is really stupid, but he has a determination to achieve his goal. In Yi Yan's opinion, this kind of persistence is more rare than any talent. Chapter 25 Grandfather and Grandson. Juxing Restaurant. This is a restaurant in Shixian County. Its grade is neither high nor low, and there are many customers every day. It wasn't yet noon, and the restaurant was filled with guests, and it was very lively with every word. What is the topic now? Of course it was Yi Yan, including killing Mao Sihai at night, driving Yu Shixiong off the stage, and killing the strong men of the Wang family the next day. The topic is too strong, and they are all talking about it, becoming more and more exaggerated. There was even a storyteller who knew how to catch traffic and directly compiled Yi Yan's actions in the past. for days into storytelling, he said in the restaurant, and he became even more exaggerated and directly called Yi a saint. Power, and Zhang Yutai, Wang Tianyuan and others have also become king level, and each move is a devastating battle. Puff, a girl couldn't help laughing and quickly covered her mouth with her slender hands, but her shoulders were still shaking, and she obviously endured it very hard. Unexpectedly, the storyteller's eyes were sharp. He immediately noticed it. He immediately put away his board and said, "This girl? Do you think I'm making up a mess?" "No," the girl admitted generously, raised her head and showed a pretty face that was very happy and angry, which immediately made the entire restaurant lit up, and many people's eyes straightened. How could there be such a beautiful girl? The key is that it is not only beautiful but also pure, like a clear spring without any impurities, making people feel comfortable to watch. The storyteller is also a little lost, but storyteller is his source of income here, so he naturally cannot be smashed by others. He smiled, took out a piece of paper and said, "Little girl, do you know what this is?" Without waiting for someone to answer, he said, "This is the gift Yan gave to Mousy Hai." Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but exclaim. The storyteller couldn't help but feel proud. On that day, he was invited by the Mao family to go to the storyteller and perform a show. He witnessed Yi Yan's power with his own eyes. Later, the Mao family father and son were killed. The scene was in panic, but he was brave enough to take advantage of the chaos. The gift on the ground was picked up, but someone stepped on it a few times, leaving many footprints. He felt as if he had found a treasure, carefully wiped off his footprints, and put away the book and silk. Sure enough, now some people questioned that he threw out this evidence, which attracted a burst of exclamations, which made him very useful. The girl is inexplicably. If you take out a calligraphy and painting, it is also proof, even if it was written by Yi Yan. What does it have to do with you that he can fly to the sky and escape? Ha! The old man who was having dinner with the girl glanced at him, but was slightly stunned. He couldn't help but put down his chopsticks, and his expression was even more excited. He said to the storyteller, "Brother, can this character be seen by me? Have a look, Grandpa." The girl was surprised. If others don't know the identity of the old man, will she not know? Her name is Wang Qingsu, and her grandfather is the famous Wang Tong, but she has no relationship with the Wang family in Sakang. But she just happens to have the same surname of former dean of Daxia College. Grandpa was a 5th grade strong man at the beginning, but in order to attack the 4th grade, he was obsessed with it. Although he saved his life, his cultivation level had slipped straight to the 9th grade. But even so, his grandfather's status in Daxia is still extremely noble. How many students did the old man teach in his life? How many of them have grown into strong people? Just pull it out, and you can destroy this town with one hand. But grandfather actually lost his composure because a man named Yi Yan wrote a word. How could she believe this? The storyteller was a little hesitant, because although Wang Tong was well dressed and looked like he was not an ordinary person at first glance, he looked so excited, as if he was reluctant to give it to him and wanted to rob it, which made him really doubt that handing over the things would turn into meat. The bun beats the dog, but there is no return. My grandpa wants to see. Why are you hesitating? Are you afraid that my grandpa will not be able to steal it? Wang Qingsu said angrily, but looking at her grandpa's increasingly excited expression, even she suspected that her grandpa might really reach out to steal it. Here, this is 100 taels of silver notes. You can buy this piece of paper. The girl took out a silver notation and slapped it on the table. 100 taels. Everyone couldn't help but exclaim, because the average family of 3 costs only 10 taels of silver per month, which is a huge sum of money for most people. But this girl actually used it to buy a word, a sacrifice. However, the girl is dressed in silk and has fine workmanship, and she is obviously from a wealthy family. Do you think 100 taels of silver is a huge sum of money? But for others, it is just a day's pocket money. The storyteller's face immediately changed, and he immediately filled with a smile. Look at what you said. How could I doubt the old man? Look, take it, take it. He handed over the letter, and when he took his hand back, the silver note fell into the palm of his hand. He put it in front of him and saw the words Datong silver number, and 102 patterns silver are printed into his eyes. He immediately smiled and stopped talking and left. The banknotes of the Chase Bank are notoriously fake. Even if you take a fake bank notation and just write the 4 words of the Chase Bank notation, you can exchange real silver at the bank. But those who make fake silver notes, then you will die very miserably. After the Datong Bank killed several batches of counterfeit people, at least no one in the Daxia kingdom dared to forge their banknotes. Therefore, the banknotes of the Datong Bank are directly equated with real money and silver. Wang Tong took the calligraphy and painting handed over by the girl, spread it flat on the table, and looked carefully, her eyebrows and eyes shaking, and her hands were trembling. Grandpa, what's wrong with you? Wang Qingsu asked in surprise. The whole family's grandfather loved her the most. and she was also closest to her. Wang Tong closed his eyes first, then rubbed the word final with his fingers, and after a long time, he spoke, "This word is amazing. There is no mistake. 1 one book, 1 a book, amazing. Isn't it just a word of finality?" Wan Qingsu was not afraid of this grandfather, who was extremely majestic in the college and at home. She pouted and said, "What's so great? I can write it too." Wang Tong was amused by her child's words and shook her head and said, You are either grandpa underestimating you, or you will never write such a Taoist rhyme in your life, let alone you. Even grandpa doesn't have this one ability, Dayun. The girl asked with her head tilted, playful and cute. Wang Tong opened his eyes and looked at the words again. The person who wrote this word is an absolute master. Even if he just strokes and strokes, he has the charm of the laws of heaven. You can't tell it because your cultivation is too low. This person has at least a 4th level cultivation level. Sure enough, there are too many masters in the world who don't like to be famous, are willing to be lonely, and are dedicated to seeking the truth. If I could get this character when I was hitting the 4th grade, then I might not fail to think about and study the Taoist rhymes in it. When he said the last sentence, the old man couldn't help but show a strong expression of regret. Although many years have passed, and he has been telling others and himself that he will not worry about it anymore, how could his inner unwillingness really disappear? This time, Wan Qingsu was really moved. Dayun and other things were too far away from her, but she was able to reach the 4th grade by one word, which shocked her speechlessly. Let's go and visit the master who wrote this word. Chapter 26, Surname Wang, B. Grandpa Wang Tong came to the Yi family soon. The Wang family came before, which scared the remaining servants of the Yi family to escape. Later, the head of the Wang family came to apologize in person, but no one knew about the news because the Wang family blocked the news, so none of the Yi family's servants dared to come back. However, the door of the Yi family has always been open, and there is no need to worrying about anyone going in and stealing things. Wan Qingsu stuck out her tongue. What other wealthy families in Shixian County are? This is too shabby. There is not even a guard. She rushed forward to slap the door, buckled the door knocker, but no one came over. She couldn't help but shout, "Is there anyone? Is there anyone?" The sound is crisp, like a tinging spring in the spirit. After a while, a young man like a human-shaped bear walked out. His eyes swept across the girl's beautiful face, but there was no trace of stunning expression at all, and he immediately moved over. Who else isn't a tiger? He looked impatient and said, "What's the matter?" He is practicing boxing, because he didn't sleep all night. He also had two dark circles, and his terrifying body shape looked even more scary. Our surname is Wang. My grandfather. Before the girl could finish her self-introduction, she saw Huzi hit her with a punch. Bastard Wang, you dare to come. Huzi beat you up. Huzi roared. He didn't wake up until noon yesterday, so he didn't know that the head of the Wang family came over to reconcile. In his opinion, the Wang family is still an enemy and they all want to kill the young master, the master and the wife. Huzi's approach to the enemy has always been simple, direct and rough. Don't say that Huzi can't tell the difference between beauty and ugliness when looking at people. So what if you know? Those who dare to be enemies with the young master will all die. Wan Qingsu couldn't help but sniff her little tiger teeth. Is this young man crazy? He started to do it as soon as he came, as if he had an irreconcilable hatred with him. But this punch is really not to be underestimated. The girl quickly unfolded her body and let the punch pass. The fist wind blew across her cheeks and it hurt a little. She couldn't help but lose her complexion. The young man obviously had no spiritual power fluctuations, so he was fighting with pure brute force. But the blow of the fist wind made her feel a little painful. How powerful is this? Hey, didn't hit it. Huzi was slightly stunned and calmed down a little. If your opponent is not weaker than yourself, you can't do it recklessly. He remembered the young master's words and immediately fell down, like a tiger waiting to move. Violent tiger fist. At this moment, Wan Qingsu felt that she was stared at by some fierce object, and she felt that her heart was beating frighteningly fast. She was shocked. The boy felt such a terrible sense of oppression just after just a single move. How terrible would it be to punch his fist? Stop! Wang Tong shouted loudly. He was once a 5th grade strong man, and his vision was naturally far above his granddaughter. He immediately saw that Huzi's boxing style was terrifying, and he quickly called for a stop to fight. But will Huzi pay attention to him? He let out a tiger roar and his whole body rushed out. Boom! The evil power is everywhere. The magic is overwhelming. At this moment, it seemed as if the ancient divine beast had come alive, so terrible that it was indescribable. The girl was so beautiful that she still tried her best to dodge her body, and she didn't dare to shine at all, even if she was at the 9th level of her acquired cultivation. Wang Tong rushed forward directly and slapped Hu Zi with a row of cloud palms. Not to hurt the enemy, but to delay time for his granddaughter. Hu Zi was blocked by his palm, and he didn't hit the girl with the slightest margin. This made Hu Zi furious. He roared again, and it was the first move of the violent tiger fist, and instead hit Wang Tong. The same moves are extremely fierce and powerful. Even if Wang Tong has seen them, it cannot be resolved at all. If you want to break this move, you can only use evil to fight killing and violence to fight violence, and just win in the front. When the divine beast white tiger took action in the past, who can hide in the world? Only if you can block it, you will die or be seriously injured. Grandpa! Wan Chengsu exclaimed and rushed forward to block Hu Zi with all her might. Hu Zi's punch was a slight difference when he was blocked like this. But this just made Hu Zi even more angry, and his attack power and anger was even more terrifying. Although Wang Tong and his grandson are both at the 9th level of acquired strength, so even if the two join forces, they can only escape in a panic under Hu Zi's back and forth style of violent tiger fist, and they can't even make a counterattack. If someone changes, then the human power will sometimes be poor. Although the attack power of a warrior is terrible, it depends entirely on the spiritual liquid in the danshan. Once it is used up, it will not be much stronger than ordinary people. Especially if it is so full of force, it is even more supportive. Grandpa Wang Tong still wants to waste it. As long as Hu Zi's spiritual power is exhausted, the threat will naturally be eliminated. But they would never think that Hu Zi is not a warrior at all. But what drives him is just brute force, and a big bloodline of the gods and demons. The feature is super durability. The two were consuming Hu Zi, but as they fought, they found that Hu Zi had no power at all. But their spiritual power was almost insufficient. If this continues, they will be bad. The key is that they have no grudge against Hu Zi. If they were injured or killed by Hu Zi like this, wouldn't they betray the family? But the battle is so fierce that any of them dares to relax or even stop. Isn't this arguing that they are not dying fast enough? Just then, the name came out. Hu Zi, this is Chang Yue. Seeing Hu Zi fighting with a strange old man and girl, she hurriedly shouted, "Stop it." Hu Zi didn't dare to disobey. So, he stopped immediately and said to Chang Yue with some grievance, "Madam, they are from the Wang family. What's wrong with our surname Wang? Did we steal your things?" Wang Tong reacted quickly and said, "Misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. Although our surname is Wang, we have nothing to do with the Wang family in Sakang. We are from the capital." When Chang Yue heard that the grandfather and grandson were surnamed Wang, she instinctively clenched her fists. But she was relieved when she heard Wang Tong's explanation, especially when she saw Wang Chengsu was as beautiful as a flower, and even more pure as a spiritual spring. She couldn't help but feel pity and said to Hu Zi, "You kid is really a bitch. Fighting without asking clearly. Look at how hot this girl is. Her clothes are soaked. More than that, if you hadn't appeared in time, I'm afraid that our grandfather and grandson would have been beaten to death, which is really unfair." However, after such a battle with Hu Zi, even Wang Chengsu realized that the Yu family was not simple, and put away her little pride. "Hello, auntie," she called sweetly. "This girl is pretty and sweet." Chang Yue liked her more and more, but it was a pity that she was from the capital, and they could not marry her. Otherwise it would be great to have her as a daughter-in-law for their son. Although the girl was only 17 or 18 years old and not fully mature, her buttocks were very plump and round, and she must be good at giving birth. "Come on, come in," she greeted her attentively. Grandpa Wang Tong and grandson looked at each other and walked in together. Hu Zi followed at the end. He still couldn't figure out why these two people were good people even though they were surnamed Wang. "Who taught you boxing?" Halfway, Wang Tong couldn't help asking. "Young master," Hu Zi blurted out. "Hiss, terrible." Grandpa Wang Tong couldn't help but become more curious about Yi Yan, the real owner. Chapter 27, Wang Tong's shock. Chang Yue is very enthusiastic. Although she feels that she can't get to the rich families in the capital, she is fine. And what if the girl falls in love with her son? This girl TSK, the more she looks at her, the more she likes it. Wang Chengsu was so smart that she whispered, and Chang An screamed that Chang Yue had a smile on her face and couldn't even close her mouth. The little girl easily found all the information about Yi Yan. In fact, this is also very simple, even ordinary. A marginal tribe from a small family was sent to the eldest daughter of the Chu family for her light to block the evil spirits. As a result, after the 3-year period expired, she was returned by a body book. She was beaten to death by a playboy because she was worried about her friend. When he came back, he was sent to the barren mountain and waited for death by his own people. At this time, a turning point finally occurred. Yi Yan met a mysterious master, who not only cured his injuries, but also made his strength leap. A mysterious master. Wang Chengsu looked at her grandfather, and Wang Tong frowned. There is such a strange person in the world, who can allow an ordinary person to directly possess the strength of the 9th level of acquired within half a day, even if he was still in his heyday. it would not be possible. First, accumulation of spiritual power is a long process. And second, breaking the realm requires insight. But Wang Tong thought of the word that could write and keep the Taoist rhyme. This is an existence that he can only look up to. Maybe someone else has such a means. Yes, this word final must have been written by that mysterious master. Haha, I am really thinking too much. How could a young man write such words? Yanner. Suddenly, Zhang Yu's cry interrupted his thoughts. They had arrived in front of a dilapidated yard, where a young man was sitting cross-legged on the stone in the yard, as if he had thrown one. The soybeans entered their mouth, chewed them a few times before swallowing them. Wang Tong was shocked. Although the young man was just sitting cross-legged, he seemed to be integrated with the heaven and earth. Heaven is him, and he is heaven. This feeling is so mysterious that he can't help but immerse himself involuntarily. After entering, the originally dead soul power in the sea of consciousness was ready to move. This shocked Wang Tong. When he failed to reach the 4th level, his sea of consciousness collapsed directly, and his soul power flowed out, causing his realm to retreat thousands of miles. After so many years, he had thought about recultivating the realm, but the sea of consciousness was broken and turned into a pool of stagnant water. No matter what he took, no drugs can make it active. For a strong man like him who was once close to the 4th grade, spiritual consciousness is the key, and the power of his soul is like stagnant water, which means that he wants to restore his original state to his complete obsession. But now, just because he saw a young man sitting cross-legged, he actually showed signs of activeness in his soul power. How could he not shock him? He had a slight fantasy that should have been cut off long ago. He really has the possibility of recovery. At this moment, the young man stood up. Suddenly, the mysterious feeling of being integrated with heaven and earth, I am the sky, and I am the earth, disappeared, which made Wang Tong almost go crazy, and he wished that the young man would sit back again. But after all, he had been the dean of Daxio Academy for decades, so he immediately calmed down and suppressed such an impulse. But he still showed a strong look of disappointment. You two are looking for me. Yi Yan's eyes swept over Wang Tong first, shook his head slightly. The old man's sea of consciousness was damaged, and his soul power could not be preserved at all. It was like a leaking water tank. No matter how hard he tried to practice, but the soul power is finally close to zero. In the long run, the soul power will certainly be like stagnant water. Low-grade warriors cultivate their strength and physical body, but after reaching the middle and high-grade level, they cultivate their souls, because understanding the laws of heaven and earth requires a powerful soul to support, and the soul is the power of the soul. When he looked at the woman again, even he felt a little stunning. Even if it is just a little bit, it can be seen how amazing the girl's appearance is. But what made Ji Yan look at him was not the girl's Julie, but the fluctuations of the bloodlines of gods and demons on her body. Hey, the bloodlines of gods and demons are so rare, but 2 of them actually appeared in this small town. Has the bloodlines of gods and demons gone by over 1,000,000 years? I am Wang Tong. This is my granddaughter Qingsu. We come from the capital and wander around to relax. Wang Tong has recovered and introduced himself to Yi Yan with a smile. From the capital, Yi Yan nodded slightly. It was not because the bloodline of gods and demons had been knocked over. He was not from Shixian at all. But this is not the reason you came to me. Yi Yan still looked at Wang Tong, his eyes calm. But he had an indescribable power of restraint. Even people like Wang Tong are all nervous. They have a sense of resilience when they face their master when they were just practicing. He couldn't help but be shocked. He was once at the top of the 5th grade and even started Daxio Academy. What kind of big scenes have you never seen before for decades of deans? But facing the young man in front of him, he was a little helpless. The old man could not hide his shock. So he quickly took out the piece of paper and spread it out, saying, "Is this a friend's book?" Hey, why did the word final fall into his hands? Not bad. Yi Yan nodded. Before seeing Yi Yan, Wang Tong would never believe that a young man could write such a word of Taoist rhyme. It must have been written by the mysterious master behind Yi Yan. But after seeing Yi Yan, he was not like this. Think about it. Even if this young man is just sitting, he seems to be integrated with the heaven and earth and resonates with the Tao. He may be the legendary Tao body, born close to the Tao. So even if he just writes a word casually, it has the rhythm of Tao. He couldn't help but have a strong desire to love talent, and said with a smile, "To be honest, my friend, I was the dean of Daxio College for a while. Although I have retired and returned to my hometown now, I can still say a few words. I wonder if you want to go to Daxio College." Beside him, Zhang Yue opened his mouth into a circle. Daxio College. Everyone has heard of the 4 words Daxio College and knows what it represents. The Daxia dynasty has many sects, including Shujinlu, Wangzhongnu, Diazong and other 4th grade forces, which can even compete with the Daxia royal family. But the holy place of martial arts in the hearts of ordinary people is definitely Daxia College. After all, this is opened by the royal family, and the word orthodoxy alone is not comparable to any force. People who come out of Daxia College will directly enter the army. After a few years, they will at least be at the level of a lieutenant. All the generals currently serving in the dynasty are from Daxia College. This network of relationships alone is terrifyingly strong. But Daxia College is too difficult to enter. How can you be qualified without outstanding martial arts talent? So how could Chang Yue not be moved when she heard Wang Tong's words? She immediately said, I think about it, Yanner. Right. She winked at Yi Yan wildly, her face twisted. Chapter 28. I give you a word. Yi Yan couldn't help laughing. The Great Xia dynasty is just a 4th grade force, which means that the strongest person in the dynasty is just a 4th grade warrior. Who is he? The pioneer of martial arts and the ancestor of all warriors. Even if the emperors in later generations have to call him politely and respectfully, it can be said that without him, there would be no martial arts, and even the prosperity of the human race today. It is still gods and demons who rule this world. Human races are just food and toys. With such great achievements, God even opened the immortal gate for this and saved him from becoming an immortal. You can bear his worship. Even just calling out teacher is enough to make the other party be punished by heaven and struck to death by a thunder. Right. Thank you for your mercy. You don't have to go to Daxia College. Yi Yan waved his hand to refuse. Wang Tong was anxious. This person was probably born with a Taoist body. He was born close to the Tao and had no so-called martial arts barrier at all. Not to mention the 4th grade. He could even move into the top 3rd grade and become the strongest in Daxia. How can such an excellent seedling be buried in the countryside? Why are you so ungrateful? Wan Qingsu couldn't sit still. She was not Wang Tong, and she couldn't see Yi Yan's extraordinariness. She just felt that this young man was too arrogant. My grandfather personally invited me, but you actually refused. Do you know who my grandpa is? Do you know that even if my grandfather's situation is falling a lot, how many people are willing to bow their heads and worship under his grandfather's door? The former 5th grade peak powerhouse, Yi Yan, was not angry, looked at the girl and said, if you are my maid, I will give you some advice. He has always protected his shortcomings and is extremely kind to his own people. If he is an irrelevant person, he will not meddle in other people's business and is not that idle. Although he is his maid, as long as he can point his fingers a few times, the saints will have to kneel in front of him and beg him. Wan Qingsu didn't know that this was the first emperor of the human race. Seeing that he was so shameless and wanted to be a maid, he was naturally furious. What is this guy's idea? He must have had any bad intentions for himself. So once he is a maid, he can do whatever he wants. Too hateful. I'm crazy, she said, gritting her teeth. Yi Yan naturally would not force it. Although the bloodlines of gods and demons are rare, he already has one around him, and he is the invincible emperor. The bloodlines of gods and demons can only help him solve some trivial matters, so that he would not have to do everything himself. If you refuse, you will only lose yourself. Yeah, he nodded. Chang Yue was anxious. Is his son stupid? How could he pick up girls like this? There are thousands of ways to attract girls' attention, but how can you speak up and make people work as a maid? You did succeed in attracting the other party's attention, but that was angry son. Qingsu, this guy doesn't know how to speak. Don't take it too hard. She quickly smoothed out. Wang Tong was extremely displeased. He saw that Yi Yan might be born with a Taoist body, so he put down his figure and took the initiative to invite him. But this guy was actually a lustful person and arrogant man, which made him feel disgusted. What is the most important thing for a warrior? Without martial ethics, no matter how high your cultivation level is, you can only do evil. Ha ha, then I'll say goodbye. The old man was still very well educated and did not make a comeback. He forced a smile. Grandpa, let's go quickly. Wan Qingsu held her grandpa's arm and was still angry. Wait, Yi Yan spoke. Seeing that Wang Tong had just invited him with kindness, he decided to help him once. Wan Qingsu turned her head angrily. Does this guy still want to continue to pester him? Humph, don't think that you are awesome if you have a stupid man to help. After I go back, I will call a bunch of more powerful helpers to make you cry and call me. I'll write a picture for this old man. Yi Yan smiled, while going back to the house to prepare. Grandpa, let's leave. Don't pay attention to him. Wan Qingsu didn't know whether it was disappointment or shame, but she actually expressed her wrong feelings. Wang Tong thought for a while and said, let's see what words he wrote. After all, the word has a very deep impression on him, and he also wants to know if that word was written by Yi Yan. Just a moment. Yi Yan took a piece of paper and handed it to Wang Tong. Wang Tong approached and saw a word written on it, put. But unlike the previous word, there is no Taoist rhyme at all, and it is so ordinary that it cannot be more ordinary. Sure enough, the last word he wrote was not written by him. Wang Tong couldn't hide his disappointment, but he took the paper and squeezed out a smile. Thank you, my friend. Yi Yan smiled. The old man's sea of consciousness is broken. It should be beneficial to look at this word more. Suddenly, Wang Tong's heart was shocked. How do you know that my grandfather's sea of consciousness is broken? Wan Qingsu exclaimed directly. Yi Yan just waved his hand and didn't say anything. Humph, if you don't say it, you won't say it. What awesome thing. The girl pulled her grandfather away angrily, and she had a bad temper. Wang Tong was helpless and could only let her granddaughter pull her. He was also curious. How did Yi Yan see that his sea of consciousness was damaged? Yanner, you're really Chang Yu wanted to say a few words to her son. But think about it. The girl is a person from the capital and is not something that people from this small place can reach. Why bother to ask for it? Thinking of this, she stopped. After Wang Tong and his grandson left the Yu family, Wan Qingsu dragged the old men back to the inn in a rage. After entering the house, she was still angry and stamped her feet. Wang Tong laughed and said leisurely, "If you jump a few more times, the floor will be crushed by you." Grandpa, I'm so angry, and you're still making fun of me. Wan Qingsu stamped her feet again. Seeing that Wang Tong was still holding the calligraphy given by Yi Yan, she couldn't help but get annoyed and said, "I'll throw this broken calligraphy away. Haha, after all, it's someone else's heartfelt gift." Wang Tong stopped her and didn't let her granddaughter succeed. Originally, he wanted to put it aside, but suddenly remembered that Yi Yan had said before that his sea of consciousness was damaged, which made him change his mind again. He spread the paper on the table and read it attentively. Seeing that Grandpa was still reading the words written by the gangster, pervert, and liar, Wan Chengsu became even more angry and simply ran out of the house. Out of sight, out of mind. Wang Tong stared at the word, but he couldn't see any meaning for a long time, as if it was just an ordinary word. But he had nothing to do, so he kept looking at it. He didn't know how long it had been. He was a little dazed. He only felt that the word compensated on the paper seemed to come alive, twisting, and his consciousness seemed to be aroused, and was actually ready to move. This seemed to have caused some kind of resonance between heaven and earth, and mysterious symbols appeared out of thin air and sank into his forehead. The word compensated on the paper was completely activated, and it actually jumped out of the paper, and swooshed, and also sank into his forehead. Suddenly, endless symbols fell into his sea of consciousness one by one, repairing the damaged sea of consciousness. Wang Tong was so excited that he couldn't describe it, but his sea of consciousness had been damaged for too long. Although it was being repaired now, it also had a huge impact on him, making him groan, looking up and falling heavily to the ground. "Grandpa!" Wang Qingsu's exclamation came from outside the door. Chapter 29 Repair the Sea of Consciousness. Wang Qingsu was just mad at Grandpa, but she couldn't really be angry. So she kicked her feet outside the door to kill time. But suddenly she heard the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. She was startled and rushed into the house, only to see Grandpa lying on the ground with his back to the sky. She helped Grandpa, but no matter how she called or pushed, Grandpa didn't move. What happened? She was so anxious that tears came out. But suddenly she saw the paper on the table, which originally had the word compensate on it. But now it was a blank piece of paper. Could it be that pervert poisoned the paper? So Grandpa couldn't help touching it with his hands when he read it. So he was poisoned. But Grandpa had no grudges against that pervert. Why did he do this? It was me. This pervert wanted to get me. So he poisoned Grandpa and forced me to surrender. She really wanted to chop off Yi Yan's head with a sword. But how could she leave when her grandfather was still in danger? She would never give in. But what should she do with her grandfather's situation? What if Grandpa died? Grandpa! She cried bitterly, extremely sad. Grandpa is not dead. Why are you crying? The familiar voice sounded in her ears, making Wang Qingsu stunned at first. And then her eyes widened immediately. It was Wang Tong who spoke. He had sat up straight with a playful smile on his face. Grandpa! Wang Qingsu first cried out in surprise, and then became furious. That pervert dared to hurt you. Let's go and settle the score with him. Wang Tong looked solemn and said, "Sir, we have to thank that little friend." "Grandpa, are you possessed?" Wang Tong smiled, showing a touch of excitement. Grandpa's sea of consciousness has been repaired. Wang Qingsu was stunned at first, then overjoyed. Really? Of course it's true. Wang Tong nodded. But it's been more than 10 years, could it be? Wang Qingsu is not stupid, and she reacted immediately. Wang Tong showed a touch of emotion and said, "Yes. It's been more than 10 years, and there is no sign of recovery. I didn't expect that it would be more than half-healed because of someone's calligraphy. In fact, his sea of consciousness was only filled with those symbols to become complete, and the symbols are external objects after all, and will slowly disappear. But as long as he uses the power of the soul to fill these symbols before that, so that they can be solidified, the sea of consciousness can be truly complete. So now it can only be said that it is half-healed, and it has not really recovered." In addition to being excited, Wang Tong was also full of shock and even awe. Just a word has such a big effect, then how strong must Yi Yan be? Yes, it is said that some old monsters can make their bodies rejuvenate after cultivating to the third level. Is this the case with Yi Yan? He looks only about 20 years old, but he is actually a monster who is hundreds of years old. Then he actually arranged for such a person to go to Daxia College. No wonder he was rejected. Fortunately, it should be his kindness that moved others to give him that word. The cause and effect in the world is a matter of a drink or a bite, and disaster and blessing are separated by a thought. Let's go to the Yi family, the old man said. Such a senior master said that he wanted to take his granddaughter as a maid. It was definitely not because of any lust, nor was it to humiliate his Wang family, but Wang Qingsu's great fortune. He is an unparalleled master. If his granddaughter stays by his side, as long as she occasionally hears a little bit of martial arts truth, isn't it enough to make her reborn and achieve unlimited success? When he was the dean of Daxia College, many wealthy families sent their daughters and sons to him to be book boys and maids. Wasn't it just to let him give some pointers? The same reason. Now that the senior and the master have spoken, he and his granddaughter have refused. Now he really wants to hit his head against the wall. What a great opportunity. Hurry up and find Yi Yan. Maybe he can make up for it. Grandpa, I don't want to go. Wang Qingsu pouted. Wang Tong sighed and said, Zhuer, do you think that Yi Yan is really a young man around 20 years old? Isn't it? Wang Qingsu asked with her beautiful eyes blinking. Of course not. Wang Tong repeated his analysis and finally concluded. This senior is really unfathomable. He can attach his spiritual consciousness to the words, and then burst out after being attracted by my spiritual consciousness, communicate with the world, and attract the supreme law to solidify my sea of consciousness. I dare not even think about such means. Wang Qingsu was stunned. Grandpa was talking about a fairy tale. Why didn't she understand it at all? She just knew that he looked very powerful. Senior. That young man turned out to be an old monster who had lived for at least hundreds of years. Thinking about it this way, she didn't think Yi Yan was plotting against her by asking her to be his maid. No mistake. Read the content of the first 6 to 9 book. Let's go and thank the senior. She was kind-hearted and naturally knew the principle of repaying kindness. Yes, Wang Tong nodded. The old man and the young man immediately left the inn and went to Yi's house. They arrived there soon. The two stood at the door and knocked. Although no one came for a long time, they were not impatient at all. The home of a senior master must not be treated with common sense. It was a long time before Huzi came over. After seeing them, he couldn't help but touch his head. Why are you guys here again? Then he got excited. Are you going to fight again? Wang Tong waved his hand quickly and said, We are here to pay homage to your young master. Huzi was disappointed immediately and turned his head and said loudly, Young master, someone is looking for him. His voice roared, like thunder. Bring them here. Yi Yan's voice came slowly, and it seemed to be in front of him in the depths of the mansion. Let's go. Huzi turned his head and said to Grandpa, Wang Tong. The two followed Huzi and walked the exact same path to the yard where Yi Yan was. I have no eyes. Please forgive me. Wang Tong bowed to the end senior. Great virtue. I will give me the word senior to help me repair my sea of knowledge. This kind of kindness and virtue, I will be in my heart. Wang Qingsu looked at Yi Yan and still couldn't believe that such a young man was an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years. But Grandpa's spiritual sense had indeed been repaired. If it weren't for the cultivation level of several levels higher than Grandpa, he would be able to do it. It's not 100 years old monster. Qingsu has seen her senior, and she is willing to serve her senior. She bowed. On the way here, Wang Tong had already done ideological work, letting her know that this was a huge opportunity. Yi Yan smiled faintly. When he wrote the word, he moved some small hands and feet. He had to stare for a long time before it would take effect, and it would completely fail in one day. So if Wang Tong didn't believe him, he would miss the recovery opportunity. Although he has not restored his former cultivation, he is the original body of the Great Tao, and can communicate with the Great Tao with every move. The word is not written randomly, but written with the method of making talismans. Only by adding up the two there is such an effect. Get up. Yi Yan raised his hand, looking calm and gentle. In the past, his mounts were all holy level gods and demons. He took a little girl as a maid and made a top 5th grade master bow his back, which really made him unable to make any fluctuations. He glanced at Wang Qingsu and said, He will activate your bloodline first. Chapter 30 Nine-Tailed Fox Bloodline. Bloodline. Activation. Wang Qingsu's face was full of confusion. Why didn't she understand it again? Wang Tong was stunned at first, then looked overjoyed. Senior, Zhuer actually has the bloodline of gods and demons. After all, he is the former dean of Daxiano, one college. He has a natural and extensive knowledge, and knows that the bloodlines of gods and demons is not uncommon. In fact, when he was in charge of the academy, he also met several students with the bloodlines of gods and demons. Once the bloodline awakens, It is really terrifying, crushing the same level, even more powerful than most high-quality magic figures. He naturally thought that his granddaughter had the bloodline of gods and demons, but he couldn't see the bloodline of gods and demons before he woke up, and he didn't know how to activate it, so this was really just a luxury. How low is the chance of having the bloodline of gods and demons? At most 1 out of 1,000,000 people. How could his granddaughter be so lucky? But Yiyan now said that he wanted to help his granddaughter activate the bloodline of gods and demons, so how could he not make him ecstatic? Yiyan nodded. It should be the bloodline of the nine-tailed heavenly fox. Nine-tailed heavenly fox. Wang Tong and Wang Qingsu said at the same time. Wang Qingsu's pretty face changed, and she shook her head. I don't want to become a vixen. Yiyan laughed. It's just blood. It will only strengthen your body and strengthen your combat power. How can you turn into a fairy? Wang Qingsu breathed a sigh of relief, but the 3 words, nine-tailed heavenly fox, made her feel uncomfortable and always felt strange. Senior, what abilities does the nine-tailed heavenly fox bloodline have? Is it strong? Wang Tong also became a curious baby. Although he was once the head of the first hospital, he thought Yiyan was an old monster of hundreds of years. Of course, I don't mind asking for advice humbly. If he knew that Yiyan was not an old monster for hundreds of years, but an invincible emperor and martial arts creator millions of years ago, he would not know what he would be shocked again. Yiyan thought for a while. The gods and demons are born from heaven and earth, and are born powerful, but they are also limited by heaven and earth. What kind of strength is it when it was born? That is always this strength. I divided the gods and demons into 3 levels, and the first level is the saint level, the second level is the king level, and the third level is the general level. That is, the first grade saint, second grade king, and third grade general who correspond to martial arts. The first batch of gods and demons born from the innate world are born, and they live indefinitely. If the heaven and earth are not dead, they will not die. The descendants of the innate gods and demons, or other races, are the acquired gods and demons. They not only need to grow up step by step, but also have no strength as good as their fathers. The weakest one is even only equivalent to a 9th grade warrior. He is worthy of being a senior. This kind of secret of gods and demons is also casually told, as it is known to you. Wang Tong became even more respectful and said, that nine-tailed heavenly fox. The innate gods and demons can be ranked second. Yiyan said, that's the king level. A king level. Wang Tong couldn't help but feel excited and trembled all over. The strongest person in Daxia is only the 4th rank, and the king is the 2nd rank. My granddaughter is actually expected to become the king. Senior, how purity is Zure's bloodline? He suddenly thought that it was useless to have the bloodline of gods and demons. If it was too thin, as Yiyan said, it might be at the level of a 9th grade small warrior. So whether he awakened or not, what's the difference? Yiyan smiled and said, no low. If not, how could he say that Wang Qingsu is his maid? How could the emperor's maid be made by a cat or a dog? Wang Tong finally felt relieved. His old face was blooming, and he was happier than his own consciousness recovered. Old Hui is very happy. Old Hui is so happy. Are you rich? Yiyan asked suddenly. What is this idea of senior? The jump is so unexpected. Wang Tong was stunned for a moment, and quickly took out a few silver notes and handed them over. I didn't make much preparations when I went out. I only had 3,000 taels of silver. Enough. Yiyan put away the silver notes. I'll buy some medicinal materials. You guys are waiting here. Yes, yes. Wang Tong agreed respectfully, even more grateful. The senior must have gone to buy herbal medicines for awakening, blood for his granddaughter. So how could he not be grateful for it? Thank you before master. Wang Qingsu wanted to call her senior, but after being glared at her grandfather, she quickly changed her words. She was still a little aggrieved and her eyes turned red. She had never said a heavy word by her grandfather since she was a child. Woolen cloth. Yiyan didn't care and left. Of course he went to Dio Pavilion. He used up all the savings of the Yi family. Now, just 1 or 2 days have passed. The Yi family's shops and industries have not collected their money yet, and they are so poor that they are so poor. However, this is for Wang Qingsu to awaken her bloodline, so it is natural for the Wang family to pay. Well, 3,000 taels of silver are a little too much, and I can't use it all by buying the medicinal materials for Wang Qingsu to awaken. I can buy some more medicinal materials to refine the spirit gathering pill. Just think it's his hard work. Yiyan sighed. No mistakes. 1 song, 1 content, 1 in 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 reading. Although he lived for 9 lifetimes before, except for the first life, he made sufficient preparations in the 8th lifetime. He did not lack cultivation resources at all. In addition, he had all the realm and realized it, so he easily returned to the peak. Now, in this 10th life, he was plotted against and had only time to attach his soul seal to the Great Way. This was the result of his ninth life's cultivation. Otherwise he would die directly, leading to his understanding of the realm. In this life there is no other resource. Hey, the emperor is going to make money too, Yi Yan teased himself, but there was a smile on his face. It is also quite interesting to start from scratch. And this life is a great way to understand the great way. And the achievements will exceed the previous 9 lives, or even the sum of the 9 lives. Just thinking about it makes him look forward to it. He came to the medicine pavilion with ease. He was obviously on the list of people who were interested in him. The shop assistant invited him to a room on the 2nd floor. After a while, the beautiful Zhongchen came over. Her waist was pinched, her buttocks were full, and she was charming with every step. Mr. Yi, are you here to see Yurong today? The beautiful woman came to him with a fragrant breeze and sat down. Her buttocks were straight and round like a full moon, and her eyes were charming and beautiful. She was born with a foxy charm. She didn't need to be deliberate at all. There were countless temptations and charms in her every move. Yi Yan shook his head. Buy medicine. Aren't you here to find Yurong? But you clearly stared at Yurong's chest yesterday, wishing you could hang your eyes on it. What medicine do you want to buy? The beautiful woman picked up the teacup and took a sip. Aphrodisiac, the stronger the better, Yi Yan said casually. The beautiful woman immediately spat out a mouthful of water, but fortunately Yi Yan reacted quickly and slightly moved aside to avoid being sprayed. Zhongchen kept coughing and looked at Yi Yan with a look of surprise, shock, contempt, confusion, and other complex expressions. Shameless. With a delicate rebuke, the beautiful nurse Yurong also entered the room. She glared at Yi Yan. We have the principles of the medicine pavilion, and we will never help evil people do evil things. Don't even think about it. What does a man buy aphrodisiacs for? Do you still need to think about it? It must be a disaster for women. How can there be such a shameless person who openly buys aphrodisiacs? How can he be so thick-skinned?